Hello, so I have been gone for a little while because I fell sick and then I wasn't having too much fun messing around with the new stuff that got buffed. So it took me a while, but finally I am back with another video. Today we'll be playing some enhanced sword because apparently some enhanced sword has been making waves a little bit in the meta for being and gaining a bit of popularity. So today we're gonna be just playing some enhanced sword. So let's look at the list we're playing for today first. So this is the list we're playing for today. You might have noticed a moment ago I said that I decided to play some enhanced sword because people have been having some success with it. So yeah, because of that I decided that I would just not look up the actual list that has been getting success, and I just like threw together my own enhanced sword list in 10 seconds, so clearly this is going to be at the same level. If I'm gonna be serious for a moment, you should definitely just look up the list that's been making waves if you want to play enhanced sword seriously, but you know, sometimes you just like playing like my own deck. So yeah, today we're playing this terrible list that I threw together very quickly. Around World of Games here for card draw. The enhanced early game stuff is here. Orchestrated Alliance is supposed to be for early game, but I didn't play against much biz at all, so it didn't end up coming in too handy in that respect. Ideally, I do want more Band of Battle Princesses, but I was too lazy to figure out where to cut cards for it, so I'm only running one copy in this list. And then Gildara is here for fun. The idea is that after you get Yidmetra active, she can summon out a board for very cheap, which you can then buff while pinging your opponent, and since she gives everything rush, it helps you unseal your opponent's board once it runs out of evil points. So that's the idea. And Nightly Ardor is just here for healing. That's about it. So yeah. This list we're playing for today, not the most optimum, but I mean it was okay, and it still does regular enhanced sword stuff. So yeah, let's look at the deck. Let's look at the gameplay I have for you today, I guess. So my first match I have for you against Rune. Right now Rune and Portal got buffed, so I'm trying to feature those decks, even though I think those aren't particularly difficult matchups to win. But yeah, here you have a game against Rune. For the Mulligan, I like to keep World of Games because it's harder to pop in the late game, plus you don't have a better turn 1 play anyway. And other than that, you just look for Yidmetra, Rosé, and early game enhances, especially Majestic Conquest, which is still broken right now. So the main idea is just to get Yidmetra active, and then you don't have Albert in this deck anymore, so you just slowly grind out your opponent with pure stats after you get Yidmetra active. That is basically how this deck functions. This match against Rune, the matchup is usually free unless you play very badly or like you break all your opponent's super high rolls. You just win this match like quite automatically, because Rune just doesn't have good ways to deal with your board after a certain point, so as long as you get to that point, you just win like by default. So yeah, definitely not a very difficult matchup at all. While playing Dirt Rune myself, I have 0 wins against Enhance, and while playing Enhance, I have 0 losses against Dirt Rune. So yeah, that's how the matchup works. So we do finally get to pick out our Yidmetra here off the Rosé, and then we'll just go ahead and trade into their Guild Elise here. But not playing pretty slowly. They do have Norman here, which I guess they will try to threaten me with the Norman board, but we can just answer this board because we just happen to have the tools to deal with it, I guess. So we go ahead and get up the World of Games here while we can, and then we go ahead and extend our Majestic Conquest, drop Yidmetra to get the enhance, her evolve is like active. We make sure we play the sword first so that we actually have enough faith so that we can evolve Yidmetra for the effect. And then we just trade off. The slower they play the early game, the easier the game becomes because we can definitely outscale like them, and like almost every deck we just outscale into the late game. So the more resources we get to save early on, the better, I guess. My opponent is playing very passively, which is very good for us. Basically, the only actual threat that exists in this matchup is Lovely Masterpiece, so as long as you play around that, you should be fine. And we just take this chance to use Rosé while we have the chance to pick up a 0 cost Yidmetra. We'll look to set up our 0 cost our second round of Yidmetra at some point, since we have the evil points and the hand cards to do so. Why don't we draw Gildara here? All of it, even though we don't really want Gildara right now, we'd rather have it in the late game. Go ahead and just moderately threaten them on board here, or just playing enhancers so that we can get our Yidmetra to be active. Try to go wide here to bait out a masterpiece so that we can answer if he has those strategies or setting up Yidmetra. My opponent will use Gluttony plus another Abomination to clear my board instead. And they will drop the Predator as well, which is fine. We got another Heartless strategist, which is quite good, which means we can freely answer a second master. We can freely answer Masterpiece using it. So for now, we will just go ahead and set up the second Yidmetra as intended, I guess. No reason to spend this Depths of the Eldsword. It's not gonna make much of a difference. Mainly you save this to buff your board out of range of Lovely Masterpiece Fanfare, which is AoE 6. In this case, buffing my board by another 2 wouldn't do anything because Yidmetra survives the Fanfare either way, while the rest of my board will still die either way. So yeah, no reason to use the Depths here. We just moderately pressure my opponent on board here so we can force them to spend resources while we set up our own nasty boards. So here we go for Gildara here. I decided to use I decided to use the Strategist here because A, I'm pretty sure that this will force our Masterpiece, and B, with Gildara at Rally 20 and now Yidmetra in hand, we are pretty safely able to answer a Masterpiece. So yeah, we just make sure that our Gildara is healthy so that if they go Masterpiece here, they are forced to Super Evolve it. Which they are here. And they will Super Evolve the Masterpiece. So then now that they're out of your points, we basically won the game. As long as we can answer this, which we definitely can. So yeah, a pretty easy matchup, I would say. Go ahead and use a Gildara here. Just to get a bunch of followers on board. Unfortunately, we don't have enough play points and enhancers to get to a third round of Yidmetra, even though it's entirely unnecessary anyway. Go ahead and buff up this board. Arguably, if they have a second Masterpiece plus Gluttony spell, they can just use it to clear my board. But then after that, we have another Gildara. We have a bunch of stuff with Enhance. We have another Heartless Strategist. So yeah, even if they did end up having another Masterpiece plus a removal for this, we are completely fine. So yeah, in this case, my opponent couldn't answer it, so they just concede. So that's it for this game. Our next match here is against Portal. Right now, Artifact has been getting some popularity because they newly got buffed, which allows you to actually make some pretty decent use of the old Artifact pieces as well. So it's some popularity there. It's a pretty flexible deck. I don't know how strong it is, to be honest with you, but yeah, I would say that this matchup is like slightly favored as long as you manage to draw Noelle properly. You should be able to just drain out of range while and if you just keep building massive boards, they don't really get the chance to drop the Gundam properly. And as long as you can get to that state, you will usually win, I think. Of course, easier said than done, and then you might lose to early aggression, so yeah, you just sort of have to avoid losing to that, I guess. So that's the beta for my opponent. They will drop Imari as well, which will allow them to draw a spell, which is fine. This fairly good turn for me. We can go ahead and trade and just drop Serenity Shield here. At this point, we are probably looking to save Conquest to pair with our Yidmetra turn or something like that, so that's what we look for, I guess. But then he just cashes to clear this board, which is fine. We're just gonna go ahead and draw into our deck with the Eldsword and then just go ahead and pass here. Save Battle Princesses for in case they make a white board that we have to answer. In this case, they are a bit annoying here going wide with the Brazen Broadcaster. Unfortunately, Band of Battle Princesses will not quite clear this, so we are forced to use the Yidmetra that we top deck here, which is pretty good. If we didn't do that, I'd probably just go for Gildara here. It might delay Yidmetra a little bit, but it's probably fine. But since we drew Yidmetra plus since we draw the top deck Yidmetra here, we can just go ahead and spend it, and then next time we have a second one to get our buffs going. So there's the ominous artifact beta for my opponent, which will chip us down. Mainly you take some damage and then you get second Yidmetra active, ideally, or even without it you just go for Lord Noelle, plus you use Golden Knight to heal. And then you just keep setting up followers while healing with these kinds of cards, which makes it hard for them to drop stuff like Scarlet or the Omega artifact. We'll go ahead and get rid of that and just buff our board a little bit and make it a little bit wider. The main point for this matchup is to check how many different artifacts they have played. Right now it's still 4. They have the 3 easy names, so it should be a bit difficult for them to get a 5th name, so we can expect that Scarlet will only deal 4 damage for the close future, I guess. Go for Not Noel here just to heal out of range. Again, we know that there are Scarlet AoEs for 4, so the magic number is to have 2 followers that have enough to survive a Scarlet's health. In this case, Scarlet's Fanfare won't be able to clear both Lord Noel and Fearless Soldier, so that is the idea here, which makes it hard to drop Scarlet. They are gonna go ahead and drop Karula here, which is fine, and York Zenta as well. And they play the spell here, which I believe will copy Karula, so we keep in mind that they have a 2-cost Karula in hand, we should be fine. Take a bunch of damage here. I did really want to draw one more Lord Noel just to heal very safely out of range, but unfortunately we don't quite get there. We don't want to die the Scarlet, so we go ahead and play the Golden Knight. Honestly, I'm like a little bit certain that I could have gotten away with not playing Golden Knight here, but I wanted to be safe, so I just healed up out of range as much as I could. Opponent just ends up having Scarlet here, which would take a bunch of damage from, which is not ideal, but what can you do? Finally, either is very good pickup here. We go ahead and get our second Yidmetra active. And then we have enough play points saved here. We could go Rosé here to buff the board more, but I think getting the healing here is safer. So we'll go ahead and do that. If we don't heal up, we're dead to Scarlet plus Karula as well, so that's something to keep in mind. So just go relatively wide, or just get up some big followers here, which will hopefully force my opponent to answer them. Unfortunately, it does answer this pretty cleanly while continuing to chip me down, which isn't great for me. Just go ahead and use Golden Knight here to heal up and clear their followers. Hopefully they don't have a good answer for this. They did spend a bunch of resources, so yeah, hopefully they can not clear this. But then it goes Catapult here, and they will make an attack artifact. I think they're 1 play point short of clearing this. Yeah, they go Mew here, and then they pop the thing, and they realize that they can't play the Striker artifact, so they just concede. Our last match here is against Haven. I think Crest is pretty popular right now, so we sort of assume that it's Crest. I would say Crest is a fairly manageable matchup. As long as you manage to get Yidmetra running properly, you can usually just outstat whatever your opponent can do. So yeah, that's the idea here. Double Majestic Conquest early on is a pretty good start. We can go ahead and just use that. Pick up Yidmetra here as well, which is certainly something, I guess. Opponent coins Marwyn here, which is a bit annoying. We were gonna play Loyal Guard here, but we don't really want them to evolve that Marwyn and hit me in the face, so we will spend Yidmetra here. Thankfully, we do have Rosé in hand to guarantee our second one. And we pick out a bunch of Rosé, so now we have all our Yidmetras basically, so yeah, we can look towards double Yidmetra for this match as well. I would say double Yidmetra is usually fairly consistent to get to as long as you're not playing a deck that is too aggressive. My opponent evolves their Marwyn here and trades, which is fine. We're just gonna go ahead and use Rosé here to clear the Marwyn while just getting my enhanced count up. I'm gonna use Congregant as well. This will allow them to clear my Fearless Soldier while they also draw more cards from their deck, which is fine. We go ahead and draw Yidmetra. We have more Rosés than Yidmetras in the deck right now, so ideally we would draw as many Yidmetras as we can off Rosé instead of naturally from top deck, so we can get them at 0 cost. So we go Yidmetra here with the Rosé, and we'll clear their Congregant as well. As a decent board, nothing too threatening here, but you know, might annoy my opponent a bit, hopefully. My opponent will go hit Mecha here, which will lock a bit of my board, which is quite annoying, but we'll just take this as a setup turn, I guess. Let's go ahead and evolve the Loyal Guard here. Get rid of the Mecha. Well, sort of annoying them a little bit. It's not that hard to clear this, obviously, but you know, hopefully we can annoy them a little bit. Someone goes for Supplicant here, and they will use Torrent of Despair. They hit the 50-50, which is a bit annoying for me. We end up taking a bit of damage here. But thanks to picking a harder strategist here, we are now guaranteed our second round of Yidmetra. As long as we play in the correct order, if you play the Heartless Strategist first, you will not have a target for Outsword, so just keep that in mind if you are in a similar situation. So you go ahead and set a really reasonably threatening board here. I guess you can evolve Yidmetra for the second time. We're not quite at rally 20 here, but we should be fine. Someone goes for Grimnir here, and with their amulet as well, they coin Torrential Despair. Again, they hit the 50-50, although this time it doesn't really matter because they full clear no matter which they hit, but you know, a bit unfortunate, I guess. So just go ahead and try to annoy them on board here by setting up followers. Go ahead and use the Rosé here. And then just sort of annoy them on board, force their resources out, and then hopefully we can look for a finish after they run out of ways to clear my board. I managed to force out a super evil point here, which is great, and that's my opponent's last Marwyn as well, so we keep that in mind here, I guess. Thankfully that Grimnir Crest was late, so it activates after Marwyn, which is pretty good for me. But now here we'll just take opportunity to heal while clearing their board and setting up a fairly annoying follower. Golden Knight significantly loses her effectiveness if you... Or rather, she becomes significantly more effective when you have another follower beside it, because then it can make your opponent miss Torrent of Despair. So, Enhanced 9 now, while we have the Majestic Conquest Crest still active, is pretty decent, I think. And now we're at rally 20 as well, so we can go ahead and start using these Gildarias to annoy my opponent on board while setting up a board of our own, and just sort of chipping them down, even though chip damage doesn't really matter that much because they have a lot of healing. Opponent draws Vera here, which I guess they're playing Vera for some reason, which I guess it annoys some people, but for us it's a completely fine thing to deal with here. They don't manage to full clear my board, which is good for me. We're gonna go ahead and keep annoying them on board here. This Vera tells us that they don't really have good board clears in hand right now, so now is our time to shine. Go ahead and use Harder Strategist to clear this. And then we can just buff this board even more. And this should probably annoy them enough to win the game. And then goes Devotee of Repose here, trying to challenge. Yes, they just couldn't answer this board, which tends to happen once your opponent runs out evil points with this deck. So yeah, this is the main way you win with this deck, is just to keep buffing your board until your opponent just can't do anything about it anymore. So that's it for this game. So those are all the games I have for you today. Hopefully it gave you some idea of how this deck works. Enhance is still a pretty decent deck even without Albert. I think you can just keep buffing things and your opponent just like runs out of answers. It's a bit weak in the early game, but right now the mainly stronger in the early game decks of Abyss. I don't know, I just haven't been running into much Abyss, so I've been having a free reign to take the early game slow, but maybe you can run into a lot of Abyss, you might have a different experience. But yeah, a pretty interesting deck, I guess. It's a nice little bit of change of pace if you are bored of playing Rally Sword. You can try this one out. I don't know how it's gonna do once Rosé rotates out, but we'll see next month how that works. Yeah, that's it for today. See you next time. Oh yeah, I forgot to add, I'm just like not having so much fun with the meta. I don't really think it's that fun of a meta right now, so yeah, I'm probably gonna be moving very slowly on this channel if at all, so yeah, just keep that in mind, and I'll see you if I make another video, I guess, within this month. Yeah, that's it for today. See you next time. Bye bye.